A while ago, I had done a video on Premier League players or soccer players and how their data is used, the players themselves, from the professionals all the way down to the youth ranks. Today, I wanted to look into the NFL, and maybe not the players specifically, but maybe you and I, or those that are fans, and how that data is used, right? So if you're like me, you've probably been a fan of an NFL team for a while. You keep tabs of their information, their news, the players. Maybe you're part of a fantasy league. I know that's huge. Maybe you're part of 5 fantasy leagues. Maybe you are involved with online gambling if it's legalized in the state or where you're at over NFL games specifically. There's so much information out there for fans, and specifically what information is typically gathered. What type of controls or security does the NFL have in place? What do they have to adhere to for regulations? And then what is that information used for? Obviously, it's for fan interest. It's to drive marketing and involvement, engagement. But what kind of information is collected? Typically, you'll have some form of login or identity information. If you were to win a prize or be entered into some sort of sweepstakes and win, you'd probably have more information, possibly even things like your social security number or address or bank information for those types of sites. But for most of us, we're logging in on an app or on a website that has information regarding the NFL. Maybe you're tracking down the information on an injured player or your favorite player, and you're clicking through links trying to figure out how bad is that high ankle sprain. As you're clicking through, and especially when you go off of the NFL site to some third-party sites or maybe some additional reporting sites, you are sharing that information, your tracking information, with the NFL, with its affiliates as well. It may even gather your internet activity, your IP address or your device type, what you click on, what types of apps you are using, and how often you use them. Say you go to a game and you go to cheer on your team. There might be biometrics or different identifiers as required for stadium access. The NFL can also gather information about you from sources like data brokers and advertising partners to gain maybe a more complete profile. Interesting stat I had discovered in this research is that the NFL Fan Initiative on AWS integrates 90 billion rows of fan data with over 250 dimensions per fan. What does that mean for you, for me? Obviously, a Green Bay Packers supporter from birth, basically. On average, 250 pieces of information that are known per fan, 90 billion rows of fan data. That's a lot. And there's different ways that we can look at limiting that, and specifically how is that information used, and then what can I do to maybe limit that scope? Because the truth is, I love this sport and I'm going to interact with it. I'm going to be curious about it beyond just what's shown on TV. And so how do you do that in a safe or a privacy focused manner? So let's look at what the NFL specifically states on how the information is used. Obviously, they highlight it's to personalize your experience as a fan. It's to market to you and to operate and improve their services. But the data is shared not just with their own family of companies and clubs or organizations, but also with select business partners, third-party advertising services, and then additionally for legal purposes as well. The NFL has obviously expanded beyond our shores in America, and there are games that happen in Ireland, Germany, England, Brazil, and the NFL has to take those regulations in those countries into consideration. So for instance, when the NFL goes to Europe, it abides by GDPR for data privacy, but it doesn't necessarily abide by GDPR here in the US. And in fact, it states kind of vaguely so that the controls that they use are based on NIST controls. And from what I can gather, mostly NIST CSF, Cybersecurity Framework, as well as ISO 27001. And that's about the level of depth that I was able to find as you went into it, and then adds on basically layers as geographical regulation would require. A lot of the information or the data that's used, specifically stated use, might seem innocuous, might seem fairly harmless, but it's about knowing how that information is used and the potential of where that information could be used or sold to. There have also been recently some different red flags, I would say, when it comes to fan data privacy. For instance, the Digital Advertising Accountability Program, DAAP, recently, as in I think January of this year, flagged the NFL and its teams for significant data privacy missteps. Specifically, the Cleveland Browns app, I know, was specified and called out for collecting geolocation data and sharing it with third parties without clear user consent, and specifically without the opportunity for users to know they can opt out of that collection of data. Those types of things are something that I think the NFL is taking more seriously as of very recently, because they were being called out, specifically because these things were brought to light. And now there's a little bit more self-reporting going on when it comes to data privacy concerns. It's extensive data collection. The sheer volume and detail of the data collected is something to be aware of as a user, as someone interacting with it, and also as you do interact with it, to be mindful of the different opportunities you might have to opt out. Lastly, I want to talk about how you can take control, how you can protect your privacy as an NFL fan. First and foremost, be mindful, be aware. Notice when it's asking if you want to accept all cookies on the site you're going to. Usually I don't turn down sweets, but that's something that you need to be mindful of. Those are tracking applications or tracking usages of your activities. Being mindful of just the large amount of data that's collected by the NFL is first and probably the primary thing I want to stress, is that awareness, right? Communications. You can click unsubscribe to just about anything. You can find ways to opt out. In your devices, you can stop collection of real-time geolocation data, whether you're iOS or Android. I mentioned the cookie settings on NFL sites and on apps. Specifically, when you click from an NFL website to an affiliate or to something that maybe you're just trying to find more information about. Maybe you're like me and you're like, I wonder what the completion rate was for this quarterback, or how many receptions did this wide receiver have in 2023. And you might click to a site that takes you away from an NFL site. Being mindful that you don't know if those sites even adhere to the vague description or understanding of NIST controls, ISO 27001. That is something that you are actively doing, is opening yourself to your information being collected in an even broader case, most likely. On the NFL websites and apps, you can find things like privacy settings or cookie settings and toggle off options for selling, sharing, targeted advertisement. There's a site called youradchoices.com/control where you can manage your preferences for internet-based advertising, IBA, across different services. You can even Google NFL IBA opt out. And the NFL privacy policy does have a link and resources of how to opt out of your information being sold to advertising. It's something that they do to give and to meet that qualification of allowing users consent or the opportunity to opt out, but it's not going to be on their front page. It's something you're going to have to find. Again, being mindful of it. Just taking a few minutes to adjust your settings can give you incredibly more control over your personal information so that you can enjoy the interacting with the fantasy teams, with your own personal team, with the gambling sites or the daily fantasy sites that you might interact with and that give you enjoyment in this sport and in interacting as a fan of this sport while maintaining your privacy and your personal information in a way that benefits you as a fan. And specifically, maybe outside of the NFL, the affiliate type of partner organizations, that you want to make sure that you are being safe. The further away from the known controls that you are, obviously the less secure you are. So enjoy the NFL, go Pack Go, and be secure.